Okay, so this is the VBOO pre-match protocols 2024. I've got Sue Graham, our trainer, on the line with us here as well on this Zoom call. Or those of you listening just in audio, we're going to try and describe this as best as possible. So the question is, what do you do when you walk into a gym and you're ready to get started? You're ready to start the clock and all that kind of stuff. Well, this is a list of those things. So you can follow along on Zoom, or you can just listen to it and have it in your mind as you walk in there. The first, say hi, Sue.
Hi, Al. How you doing? Great to be with you today.
All right. So we're going to have number one, you want to have your timer set the clock to 8 minutes. So the match time is going to be, like, let's say you're starting at 7 p.m. You want to be on the floor, of course, a half hour ahead of the time with your uniform on, ready to go. And you want to have a minimum of at least 20 minutes between the matches. The warm-up time is always 8-6-6, meaning it's an 8 minute shared time, 6 minutes individual, 6 minutes individual. The visiting team goes first, of course. That applies to both varsity and sub-varsity matches. Um, Sue, you ever notice when you walk into a building and the timekeeper's ahead of you and they've already got the clock set for something like 27 minutes and it's just counting down? Um,
Happens all the time, too frequently.
so what should we ask that clock operator to do?
Hi, I'm Sue. How are you? You introduce yourselves and say you want to go ahead and set the clock for 8 minutes and start it, at the appropriate time before warm up start. I'm sure you'll get us
Exactly.
clear on that.
Yeah, and so that's exactly what we're talking about. We'll go in there and do that. Of course, you want to introduce yourself, right? So
Always.
yeah, they'll say, well, we always just do a timer countdown. It's like, that's great. We're required by the WOA to set it for 8 minutes and then six and then six. And so if you would just have it set for eight, and then I'll turn around and my partner or I will give you the signal to go ahead and start that 8 minute clock. And then that'll be followed by a 6 minute clock and a 6 minute clock. And we're going to do our best to give you a double whistle when there's 15 seconds left in every timer. So you're ready to restart a new timer. Fair enough? Okay. Good. And then 20 minutes before that match, preferably earlier, ideally 30 minutes before the match, so we can end it with 10 minutes left, so we can do all our introductions and high fives and fist bumps and everything, and Pledge of Allegiance and anthems. We want that all done so that we can actually start the match as close to 7 p.m. or whatever the start time is. So try and start it earlier than 20 minutes before the match. Start it like at least 25 minutes, and the WA recommends we start it 30 minutes ahead of time so we can have 10 minutes for all the hubbub that goes on before a match, right? Because if you think about
Perfect
it,
management.
the anthem, how much time does that take, Sue? 5, 10 minutes to do the anthem, the fist bump,
Yes.
high fives, the lineup checks, the all that kind of stuff, right? It's got to be somewhere around 10 minutes, and we're usually starting the match at 7:10 instead of 7 p.m. when it should start. Any comment?
hmm And that was just a great recommendation with regards to getting the 20 minutes off the clock and putting eight. The R2 needs to establish a great communication line with your table. And so by the R2 addressing this initially, because it will be your table, it's a really good precursor to making sure there's a good synergistic relationship
Yeah, and
established.
oh, for sure. I love that you put that synergistic. So make it fun for them and compliment the heck out of them, because a lot of them are brand spanking new and they're nervous as heck about it. You can make them feel right at home by just being encouraging and upbeat and positive with them. Okay.
hmm
The next point, head coaches and captains attend pre-match conference. If the head coach isn't available, an assistant can step in at least temporarily. The head coach should be there. I can't remember the last time I had an assistant coach step in, but occasionally that'll need to happen, and that's okay.
hmm
We should probably remind them to bring something with them. What should we remind them to bring? This is the next bullet point on here.
Rosters, rosters.
Always bring your roster. In fact, there's a penalty if they don't. So let's be what's the word I'm looking for? Preventative. Let's be preventative officiating here and
Mhm.
remind them if they don't bring their rosters to just grab it real quick, right? If they fail to do it, we have to, by rule, give them a yellow card for a delay. We don't want to do that. And so let's just avoid that altogether and remind them to bring the rosters. It's really easy. And if they forgot, usually it's a 5 second delay. Oh, yeah, I'll get it. They turn around, grab it, and they're good to go. Um,
Mhm.
Something we want to do this year, at the very minimum, if we haven't done it yet, because you should do this right when you walk in, is introduce yourself to the administrator and host management. So you know if there's any problems, you know who to go to. Worst case scenario, the latest you should be doing this is in that captains and coaches meeting. Make sure that the site administrator and host administrator or management is identified, right? You ever had problems, Sue, at a place and you're looking around and nobody has an idea who can take
I
care of
gotta tell you, Eric Gorham mentored me my first several years and is adamant about the first thing you do when you walk into a gym is identify, make eye contact, and try to meet personally your game administrator manager.
it? Yeah, it's absolutely critical. And you feel empowered as an official to know that somebody's got your dang back if there is
Oh,
a. Now, there's not a lot of huge problems at volleyball, but on occasion, it it's Murphy's Law says that on the time where you do have an issue, that might be the time where you didn't properly introduce yourself. And so just make a habit of that. First thing you do when you walk in the building is who's in charge, who's the administrator or host management on site. And
and you just, it's what's crazy is once you meet that game administrator, you never lose where he's at, he or she is at in the gym. And if they go out to get a drink or to go get something at the concession stand, you like, okay, where are they? It's a very panic moment because there's already a partnership with them the second you meet them, and you know what they are going to do to empower the match for all involved.
yeah, that goes especially for the R1, but really the R2 does a lot of the communication. But I would say, even as a line judge, I want to know exactly who that person is, so that one of the four officials on site has the closest access to that person. They're usually just standing on the wall or standing in the front row or standing by the student section. So they're usually pretty easy to identify.
Yes,
Uh,
and at
but
Washougal, thank goodness, they're always at the score table.
yeah,
And he's the announcer as well. So, it's just it's such a, this is an excellent bullet point, Errol.
okay. So yeah, we can't overstate how important that is. The next bullet point, have players, coaches, and officials introduce themselves to each other. Sometimes we forget this. We get so excited about what we want to do for the match and the coin flip and everything, we forget to just be nice and have a little moment to introduce ourselves and introduce them to each other. This creates a great a feeling, of sportsmanship before the match even starts.
And
And
R1s, I would recommend this, that R1s don't ever try to overlook the importance of introducing your R2 and asking what they want to occur during substitutions and the administrative things they're going to be addressing throughout the match.
love that. In fact, I even try to leave that part out myself as the R1, just to give the R2 the opportunity to speak up a little bit and say something. Worst case scenario, if you're the R2 and the R1 covers everything and does such a great job at that, I like to say, you know what? One critical thing, guys, remember to have fun. Just something. One thing. I
Break
want them
the
to,
ice, get them relaxed athletes, right?
yeah, I want them to hear my voice at least, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so let's see, where are we at here? Ask each coach if their players are properly equipped and legally uniformed. That's critical because it takes away the excuses. Hey, nobody told me I couldn't do this, or I didn't know I had to take my earrings off, my hoop earrings off,
Hmm.
um, things like that. It's a quick reminder that there are penalties for those sorts of things, and you feel empowered to give a yellow card if needed for a delay game if a player walks up and they've got, hoop earrings on, or a necklace on, or a bracelet on, a watch on, whatever that's visible, right? Because just for that, that's one example. Um, it gives you power later on. Any comments there, Sue?
It's such a great, like umbrella statement that it covers everything without having to get into specifics. That if something comes up, you can just refer to the umbrella statement.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
don't have to break it down. Well, it didn't say this and this and this and this. It is illegally equipped. We got it.
Yeah, and you don't even need to say uniform. You can just say properly or legally equipped and just stop there.
Mhm.
So, and I'll bowl through these, Stu. Just stop me if you have any other questions or comments to make on these. Next one, ask each coach if they have a medical professional authorizing concussion management on site. Um, we all know that one from every practice test and every actual test we've taken. We have to ask that question before every match, right?
Right.
Stop me if I go too fast here. Next one, review the ground rules with everyone. Can you give us an example, Sue, of what that means to actually review the ground rules and the boundaries and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, you want to establish all boundary lines. You want to establish all playable and non-playable areas. Always want to establish if the ball contacts the ceiling and comes down on that same side, play on till you hear a whistle. They go, oops, and stop their play in athleticism. Just play till you hear a whistle. You can't lose with that. If the ball contacts ceiling apparatus of any kind, comes crosses the plane of the net, it'll be dead ball, loss of serve. Playable areas over to the bleachers as long as one foot's on the ground or touching the ground. You want to talk about, I don't really ever go into extensive if a spectator interferes with a play, but you can. And then where the playable areas are up to the scores table and the bench. So just review all that. Let's see. Boy, I haven't done this for a while, Errol. You're gonna have to remind me. Thanks for the
Well,
pre-season
yeah.
little warm-up here.
Think about this. We were at a gym yesterday over at Prairie. They got a brand new gym floor, and the
Oh,
lines are confusing as heck. There was a couple of times where our line judges, I was on one corner and another person was on another one. And they were 10 feet out of position because the lines were
oh,
confusing.
not me, not me.
No,
Oh no, that
I don't
was the
want
other ones, not
I don't want,
me.
I don't want to name any names, but well, no, I've done that so many different times where I've called, and not just in volleyball, by the way, but I love this time to just for myself as an official, look at the whole outline of the court, see if there's any confusing scenarios on the lines. Is it a solid line? Is it a broken line? Is it a yellow line that against an orange floor that's hard to see? I want to be able to take a good line so I can have at least a strong opinion on whether a ball was in or out or a player was in or out and so forth. So anyway, um,
Yes, if there's a mascot that breaks up the center line, just let him know my R2 has noted that and will make sure that we don't call an over the center line violation unless it's, as described, as we learned it to be. So that kind of thing.
yeah, you can use that like for a broken line there with if there's a badger in the middle, I don't know, or a
Yeah,
plainsman or
exactly. Or a
um,
cougar, the
but,
best, the
yeah,
cougar.
the cougar, yeah. And I was going to make a
Oh,
cougar joke
oops.
there, but I won't do that. Uh,
Oh, no, no, no.
So
You
when
just you
when uh,
zip it
when
up.
there's something there, I like to remind them, hey, that'll just be a judgment call by the referee or by the down referee. Just to remind them, hey, don't argue judgment calls either, right? So that'll just be their judgment, and we'll just go with that. All right. Um,
Great.
and we already kind of addressed this one, but ask your partner if there's anything that they need to add. Gives the R2 a chance to add any other things. Because oftentimes I'll get talking on something as an R1, and sometimes I'll go off on a tangent like you see we're doing here today. And I'll forget to flip the dang coin sometimes. Or just something silly like that. And it's great to have a partner there that's got your back and can remind you of the 5 or 10 bullet points we want to go through in a meeting, right?
It sure does. I mean, and uh, yeah, yeah, elaborating and all extrinsic stuff's going to enter every aspect of this administrative work that we do as volleyball officials. But it's okay. You can backtrack and cover it, but don't feel like don't get anxious that you did. Just we all do it.
Yeah. Next one, visiting team calls the coin toss while the coin is in the air, not before you flip it, not after you flip it. It's in the mechanics manual. It says call it while it's in the air. Now, sometimes they don't necessarily hear you or they're not listening and they don't make a call. All you got to do is simply just flip it again and make sure that you stress in the air. So if no call is made or heard or the coin is dropped, just simply reflip. Not that big of a deal. After it's caught, you catch it and hold it in that same position. You shouldn't turn it over again. That just gives people an opportunity to see what it was. And anyway, just to make it as fair as possible, don't turn it over again. Any other thoughts or comments there, Sue?
Yeah, and just the verbiage that I've always used, thanks to Lee Calc. I show them the coin because my coin isn't a typical coin. You know, it's a
Sure.
specialized coin. Show this is my heads, this is my tails, or I say this is my tree, this is my baseball, and so on and so forth. I show it to both cap teams, both captain teams, I'm going to call it. Then I'm going to say my visiting team is going to call it. Do you know what you're going to call? And if there are two, if there's a co-captain there, I get him to. I say, are you in agreement on what you're going to call? And then together they whisper what they're going to call. And then I say, please call it in the air so it's loud so we can all hear. I flip it and they do it every time. I've never had a fail in that regard, thanks to Lee.
I love that. I'm glad you pointed that out. Because what I've noticed with volleyball players, I don't know if it's a boy girl thing there, but girls like to actually coordinate that kind of stuff. That's a big dang deal. Who's calling the toss? And they
Oh,
get
it's
a kick out of it.
secret agent stuff, Errol, secret
They,
agent
they
stuff.
get into it. I love that. So good. All right. And I use a big huge coin, so it's a little different. People get a kick out of that, but that's an icebreaker as well. Yeah, to
Oh,
have a unique coin, you know.
that's perfect.
If you got a unique coin, by all means, as long as it's appropriate, then go for it. Review the warm-up procedures. So this is pretty obvious. Once you do the coin flip, it's 8 minutes of shared, and it starts as soon as that meeting's over. And then the visiting team gets the first 6 minutes, regardless of who serves first in the match. This is something that's changed over the last few years with COVID. It is when teams used to, select which side of the court they were on and move in between sets. Now they just stay right where they're at, and the home team gets to determine what side of the court they want. And then, of course, after that six, the home team gets their 6 minutes on the court by themselves. That includes their serving time, of course. They usually hold the last minute or two for serving. Um, any thoughts there, or should we move on?
I was wondering if there were remarks this year at any symposiums we've attended about if the visiting team disagrees and would like to change benches, they have that option, don't they? Did I misunderstand that, Errol? What do you got on that?
That was something that we were implementing. Like, if there was a concern, like I know at Skyview has those skylights up on the wall, and sometimes that was a potential concern for not trading courts. But
Mm-hmm.
nobody since this was implemented has wanted to change sides or worried about what side of the court they were on. The only thing that came up just literally last week in a district SOP meeting was a concern as to whether or not the official R1 had the same type of view on ball control, especially for the setter on a second hit, as they would on their left side versus their right side, since the setter's right there in front of them on their left side, generally in the front right,
Oh,
versus
good
the far
point.
side. And so that was the only concern brought up, and the coaches didn't seem to have a big issue about it, but it was just a question, and so I said that's an interesting point, and I think we can see it pretty clearly if we're high up. Um, but yeah, I think it was pretty much equal. If we had any statistics to back up the question or why that would be a concern, if one team's getting 10 doubles called, the other team has 0 or 1, that might be just a referee issue rather than a vision issue. But it was an interesting point to bring up that I'd never considered until last week, literally. So anyway, um, if there's no other thoughts there, we'll go on here. We're about halfway done with it, I think. So this was something that came up 4 or 5 years ago with a focus on reducing concussions. The WOA and WIAA has reaffirmed to us this year in person. We physically heard it. While one team warms up their team's full court time, like during the 6 minutes shared, or excuse me, during the 6 minutes of individual court time, the other team must not warm up on the sidelines, nor anywhere they can be struck by a ball. This applies at least to all WA and WIAA matches. And of course, middle school is part of the WIAA, so that includes middle school matches. They should not be warming up on the end lines or sidelines where a ball can hit them. And so, anyway, that's something we want to reiterate. You were actually there in that conference where they said that, and you specifically asked this question, Sue. Any comments there?
You know, it's a safety issue. Now, um, my fellow officials, you are going to see probably every middle school squad automatically going to the end line and doing a hitting line. And they haven't been addressed or told not to. In fact, I, they looked at me like, huh? For the
Right.
past several years. Now, I just say, yes, it's a total safety issue. It's in regards to stray balls causing injuries, but you are welcome to go out into the hall. You're welcome to go into the adjacent common area and do your hitting line. And they instantly do because you know how thoughtful those coaches are. However, they're allowed in the next match to do it just through nothing, no intent, just sheer unawareness. So we are going to have to really be aligned in our messaging this year regarding this because we got to undo years of it not being addressed. FYI. Thanks, Errol.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of an uneasy feeling when I go as an official and I'm trying to enforce this, 4 weeks into the season. They're like, nobody's ever made us do that. Well, yeah, um, I'm going to make you do it. I'm going to follow the
Mm.
rules. I'm sorry that the other officials didn't enforce this, but I definitely will. It's just like you said, it's a liability issue. I can't be liable for this because it can come back in a lawsuit to me if I don't enforce this WIAA mandated um, procedure. And so, anyway, yeah, let's all be uniform on that for sure. And Sue, you and I will definitely do our parts on that.
Will
While
do.
athletes are warming up, R1 and R2 should check the team rosters. The R2 is responsible for it, but the R1 usually can help if they're not busy doing something else, of course. But usually we do this together. R2 will name it off, and one person's checking off the roster, and the other person is naming off, oh, I see a one, I see a two, I see a seven, I see a, whatever. So we get them all checked off. Can't always do this if they have warm-up jerseys ahead of them or on top of their number so you can't see them. But it's our responsibility throughout the whole match to make sure that the rosters are correct. Not just the beginning. We want to do it at the beginning, but we do have the responsibility throughout the whole match to make sure the roster is correct. Comments?
I know I have been with veterans who say, just count the number of players that are warming up. Make sure it correlates with the roster that we were given, since we don't have numbers due to warm-ups being on. And somehow, sometimes that has had to suffice. What do you recommend on that, Errol?
So usually that's I say worst case count the numbers, but what I saw a veteran official do last year was pretty eye-opening. Is after they actually lined up, he actually really quickly went through the whole roster after they had their warm-ups off. So he took an extra 30 seconds or minute to be preventative rather than just taking the risk of having a problem later on down the road. And I really admired that actually. I was like, wow. So instead of going straight to the lineup check, he actually very quickly, it only took him about 30 seconds, but he checked the
Great.
roster right then while they had their warm-ups off. So there's no time limit on when we need the rosters done. In fact, I believe
Mm-hmm.
it's a question on the test this year, the R2 responsibilities. And this is one of the
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities, it's our responsibility for the whole match, not just 10 minutes before the match, right?
And they're
So that's
separate from the lineup sheet. So getting that lineup sheet back to the coach after a roster check is important because a lot of times they haven't entered the lineup yet.
right. And see that, yeah, rosters are different from lineups. It's the roster they bring to the pre-match conference, and it's the lineup that's due 2 minutes before the first set and 1 minute
Hmm.
between additional sets, right?
That's great. That's a great distinction, Errol, because especially as a new to the a varsity match official, it's a that could be a real gray area. So great clarification.
All right, next thing, we want to ensure that jewelry is worn according to current guidelines and rules. I like that it says current because this just changed a couple years ago. The rule was no jewelry. Last year, now it's some jewelry like stud earrings and anything above the chin, basically. It can't be something that can catch on something. So necklaces can't be worn, wristbands can't be, well, wrist like watches, bracelets can't be worn. That's the most common thing is like a hairband around a wrist.
Hmm.
Since it's not a brace or something like that, a hairband is considered jewelry, so they have to just take it off their wrist. Uh,
Mm,
and so, yeah, that guideline has changed a little bit, and it's a different rule for college than it is for high school. And people see something on TV and they think they can do it. It's just not the case. And so,
mm,
be aware of that. Can't wear hoop earrings. And if they do wear some kind of a religious symbol, like on a necklace or something like that, it needs to be taped down. Any other thoughts on that?
that's just that's really depicts it for me, just hearing it verbally. So great coverage. I like that.
Something we should do, and we tend to get a little sidetracked on all these little duties that we have when we really need to dedicate at least 4 minutes of every team's warm-ups. For each setter, you want to spend at least 4 minutes on each setter and hitter, just watching what they're do. Warm up your eyes is the phrase. Warm up your eyes so that you're ready as the R1 to make those calls immediately on the very first serve of the ball and the very first receive of the ball. And as the R2, you're able to assist in that sort of stuff and have an opinion when it's needed. When a play is going away from the R1, if they need your opinion, a real strong opinion, your eyes need to be warmed up, and you do that by watching them in warm-ups. Any other thoughts there?
I think that players really appreciate it that you're taking a look at their tendencies, the things that I like to look for. And one thing I make sure to do is spend equal time transitioning with each side, and don't ever cut the second team short during their warm up because they notice that stuff. Um, what I like to look for is the setter setting at right on top of the 10-foot line, meaning they're going to use back row attacks, which indicates R1 has to be aware of any back row attacks. The other thing you want to look for is players taking off on their toes tend to generate their momentum forward and will be more likely to contact the net. So you're just watching for these tendencies that take the guesswork out of figuring out a match in the first few minutes in this pre-match observation, I'm going to call it. So, I mean, those are just some of the things I look. Is that? How about you, Errol? Do you have specifics you like to look at?
Yeah, I like to get a relationship of how good one is compared to the other and try and find a happy medium, and find a consistent line. So you might have, especially here in this area, you might have a top-notch 4A setter that's just amazing, one of the tops in the state, versus another one that is barely brought up from JV because their setter is hurt and she's doubling on 2 out of 3 warm-up hit. You want to find a happy medium in there somewhere where you're honoring the rule, but there's also the spirit of the rule and the spirit of the game where you want to have as much continued play as possible, and just find a happy medium point between the better setter and the not as good setter, and establish your line in warm-up so you don't have to do it during the match.
And that's that attention to setting your margins as
Yeah.
a R1 is key into going into a match. And it handles so many bullet points just in that one category. That's excellent.
I'm glad this is bullet points instead of a 29-page document here, but
We all are.
yeah, hopefully as we talk through this, it's making you create some things in your mind and different little reminders and keys that you can key off of before a match to help you get a little more prepared. Next one to be conducting the pregame with your team. You want to do this ideally before the 20-minute mark, especially with line judges, especially if it's professional officials. It's different if it's going to be students and parents and stuff like that. Sometimes it's the last minute, and sometimes you don't even get a pregame. But conduct your pregame with your team, including the score table, including your R1, R2 with each other. Just get on the same page and pregame a few of your tendencies and what you want from your R2, or vice versa, what's expected, what you might be working on, right? With the line judges, walking through and actually look and see what they're going to do and call, and what's expected out of your line judges, and see if they have any questions, and use it as a learning opportunity, and don't be afraid to talk with people. Other thoughts there, Sue?
So many nightmares have come into my mind. For your sub varsity, for your sub varsity matches, you are literally going to have players either coming from a match or with all their friends, and they'll sit at your table 2 minutes before match start. I don't know if you remember this, Sarah, but our first match together was up in an up gym, and that was the first time I'd met you, and I had 2 minutes to teach them how to keep score, and they were players. Their
I do
face.
vividly remember that. I think it might have been at Camus or something like that,
Oh
actually.
yeah, yeah. And I Oh
Oh,
my,
yeah.
and her face
Good
turned
night.
white and all I said to her was, "Can you please go tell your coach you need to have someone more experienced that you can shadow for this match?" She went and got her. They showed up. Errol came in, introduced himself to the table, and we started the match. And it's
I do
literally
remember
that
that.
quick. And I'm telling you, it's don't look, as long as they're flipping the score, as long as we've got tally marks saying what the score is, there hasn't ever been a big protest about the score. And we all respect the importance of it, but there's no way you're going to train someone how to keep score in 2 minutes.
Right.
That's all.
Or a line judge. You'll spend 5 minutes going through a very thorough line judge conversation with a high school kid, and then 2 minutes later they're gone and someone else is taking their spot.
They
And
want to
they're like,
go get a they want to go get a Slurpee and they hand it to their buddy to come off the bench and off the bleachers and line judge for us. And you just
they're look,
smile and second serve.
and they're looking at their cell phone. Yeah. So it's just it's interesting. It's never going to be
Yeah,
perfect, but we just do our best to be preventative and that sort of stuff. Next one, ensure the safety of the participants and others on the court. That's pretty obvious, but you might want to call heads sometimes or block a volleyball. Make sure you're protecting your partner if they've got their back turned talking to somebody, just for safety reasons. Make sure you're doing all the things you can to protect everybody around you.
very great.
R2, let's see, that's my ringtone. I got a crazy ringtone. Um,
A
R2,
cowbell.
let's see, it was well, it's actually Tahitian drums, but anyway. The R2 ensures that the timer sets the clock and sounds the horn at the 6 minute mark and the second 6 minute mark. And then they also do a double, we already mentioned this, but the R2 also does a double whistle with 15 seconds left in each time period. This is something that I left by the wayside for the first several years of my career. It's been in the rule book the whole time, or the mechanics book, but we just forget to do it. We get busy watching setters or checking rosters and stuff, and we forget to give a warning signal that the double whistle at 15 seconds left. And this was a point of emphasis this year at the WA conference, which was interesting. So, any thoughts there on
I
either one
guess
of
the whole I guess the whole state forgot about it too, Errol. So we're not alone.
Yeah, I remember I at the state tournament last year, I noticed nobody was doing it except me. So I brought it up. Maybe that's why it's a point of emphasis this year. I was like, hey guys, I promise you, this is in the manual. Let's be doing it. And so, yeah, I guess I set a good example there. So anyway,
Excellent example.
following the warm-ups, oh, this is new this year. Following the warm-ups, the R1 and the LJ1 walk across the court together, the R1 on the right side of the stand facing the court. So, and this is the same as last year, except the R2 and the LJ2, they place their flag on the score table, and they stay on the right side, or on the right side of the court as well when facing the court, but stay on the table side of the court. So that's new. It's more of a college mechanic. Any thoughts there?
And it's just excellent depiction, Errol, because the way you explained it makes it, oh, so it's just that. But when you read all the words that explain it, it sounds very complicated. So great, great job.
Yeah, so R2 and LJ2 just stay on that side, and that's
And
that's
he agrees too.
that's my goat notification. Let's see here. Following warm-ups. Okay. The R's. Okay, so after that, they do everything. We're ready to go to our positions. We fist bump each other as line judges and referees, and then we assume our regular positions. And the R1, not really a lot of commentary there unless you have any, but then the R1 whistles and directs players to take the court. So usually we get up onto the stand and do it from the stand. The R1 gets up on the stand and then whistles tweet and then makes a signal for players to enter the court or begin their high fives or take the court, whatever they're going to do. Any thoughts there?
Sounds perfect.
I've seen people do it from the floor too, which is probably fine, but we've been encouraged to do it from the stand. It just looks better to get up on the stand and whistle them onto the court.
I
The
agree.
Yeah, the R2 then moves to I was careful to use the language out of the mechanics book here because for me, well, here's the what it says. The R2 moves to the sideline beside the court, not on the court, checks the lineups, introduces captains to the R1, using the underhand signal, not with a C and a number, a physical C with your hand and a number. Then returns the lineups to the score table, then rolls the ball back to the server. So for me, for the first several years, I'm kind of a personable guy and want to be in part of the action. I was walking clear out almost to the middle of the court, looking around and kind of doing a
Yes.
circle, and didn't think anything of it until I read it in the score or in the manual.
You were escorting the rotation.
Yeah, I was pointing to the exact spot on the floor and
Yes. You had it down.
taking charge.
Isn't that,
Either I can't.
and it is, it's because you want, hi, and I tell you that what really dialed me in was when a veteran acknowledged this is your administrative zone from the
Yeah,
attack line to the center line.
yeah,
This is all you can see. You can see over there in the far right corner, right? You don't have to go anywhere else. Stay in your administrative zone, do the lineup check.
yeah.
And that really helped me. That kept me in my spot.
Yeah, and a trick I've kind of learned, and this might be a little tougher, but as you get more advanced, and I want to start trying to memorize the lineups and who's there. And so what I'll try and do quickly is I'll try and not look at the lineup. I'm probably getting probably too far into the weeds here, but I want to memorize all six numbers real quick and be able to spout them off really quick, just so I have that number sequence in my mind. And I'll say like, okay, 746-892, 746-892. And then I'll turn around, I'll go 746, great. And then 892, got it. And I'm able to do it
Okay.
really quickly. It's harder when the numbers get bigger, but when they're single digits, it's way easy to go through that. Or just have it in your hand and make it real simple from the sideline. And then the difference between high school NFHS mechanics and club mechanics is we don't make a C and then a number. We literally just take an open hand with our palm up, and we signal who the referee is, and we can say something to them if they can hear us, like, okay, number 4, you're the captain. Say hi to the up official, or say hi to Sue, whoever's up there, right? And they'll turn
Mhm.
around, they'll wave, and the R1 will acknowledge them by waving back, and then that's it. And then the R2 takes the ball or returns the lineups to the score table, and then rolls the ball. We don't throw the ball. We're not giving them a chest pass. We're not giving them a rainbow pass, trying to throw it over everybody. No, we're going to roll the ball. I think the language it says, I've heard it is bowling the ball,
Oh, yeah, that's what I recall.
right? A nice gentle roll or bowl to the server. Any comments on any of that stuff?
No, perfect.
All right, next the R2 makes sure the score table and score. We forget to do this sometimes. We get so excited once we roll the ball, we want to just quickly go back and give the court to the R1. No, we need to do what's called sweeps and start that before the serve actually takes place. So the R2 needs to make sure that the table and scoreboard is ready. You go to the blocking side of the net or the defensive side of the net. Make sure your shoulders are square to the sideline. We don't want a 45-degree angle. What the officials manual says is we should be at have our shoulders square to the sideline, a step back and a step to the side of the pole so you can actually get a good view of it. Make sure we sweep for any obstructions. Oftentimes there's a ball cart just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere. We need to get that out of the way. Make sure there's no water on the floor or anything like that. Make sure the line judges are ready. When all are ready for the serve, that's when the R2 signals to give the court to the R1, so that all the R1 has to do is literally turn their head and beckon, if that's all they had to do, right? So the R2 should never give the court back until they're ready for the ball to be served, so that it doesn't have to take extra time once the R1 gets control of the court. Any thoughts?
Very thorough. This review is doing me wonders, let me tell you, Errol.
Well, good. Last but not least is the R1's ready, and they do their quick sweep and they beckon for serve, and we're good to go. The match is on. Then there's a whole nother discussion. Guys, hopefully this helps. Either just the audio listening to it or going through it, and you feel, and you can actually carry this list around if you want, but at least you have it in your mind. And as you go from one thing to the next, it'll just remind you of what comes next. But this will help us get ready for the upcoming season. Any other final thoughts, Sue?
Play hard, VBOO.
All right, guys, have a great season.